All right, today we're diving into a story that's just massive in its scale and complexity, the population of India. We're going to go way beyond that headline number of over a billion to really understand the dynamics, the surprising ways people are spread out, and the big questions that are shaping the future for, get this, 1/6 of all humanity. Let's get into it. So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll start with a really basic question. Why do we even care so much about population? Then, we'll jump into the truly staggering numbers and see where people actually live. After that, we'll look at the engine that drove all this growth, and we'll check out the incredible migration happening inside the country. And finally, we'll look ahead to the future, focusing on India's young people and the policies meant to guide them. First up, let's lay down a really important foundation. Before we even get to the charts and the big numbers, we have to ask, why is population the main thing we look at to understand a country's story? I mean, just think about that for a second. Can you really imagine a world without us? All the resources we talk about, the societies we build, even something we call a natural disaster. None of it really means anything without people. Without us, they're just things that happen. And this quote just nails it. Coal is just a black rock until we figure out how to use it for energy. A huge wave is just a wave until it hits a city full of people. We are the reference point for everything. So here's the bottom line. Humans are the ones who create and use all of the Earth's resources. Okay, with that in mind, let's get to the numbers. And believe me, when we're talking about India's population, the scale is it's almost hard to wrap your head around. So, according to the 2011 census, India's population was already over 1.21 billion people. Now, it's super important to remember that this number is our baseline for this explainer. It's a snapshot from a key moment in time. But even then, it was a number so huge, it's tough to really imagine. Now, this is where it gets really mind-boggling. Look at this contrast. India is home to 17.5% of all the people on Earth, but it sits on just 2.4% of the world's land. That one single fact is so important for understanding the incredible pressure on India's resources and its infrastructure. And, this population isn't spread out evenly at all. Not even close. In fact, almost half of all Indians live in just these 5 states. To give you some perspective, back in 2011, Uttar Pradesh by itself had more people than the entire country of Brazil. This map of population density gives us a much clearer picture of where everyone is. See the darkest red areas? That's where more people are packed into every square kilometer. And you can't miss that deep red band stretching across the northern plains. That's basically the demographic heart of India. And this chart just drives that point home. It's wild. On one end, you have a mountainous state like Arunachal Pradesh with only 17 people per square kilometer. Then, on the complete other end, you've got the flat, fertile plains of Bihar, cramming in over 1,100 people in that same amount of space. And remember, India's national average of 382 is already one of the highest in the world. So this all brings up a really big question. How did India's population get this huge in the first place? What's going on under the hood? Let's take a look at the engine of this growth. A country's population is never static. It's always changing. And that change really comes down to 3 main things: the birth rate, the death rate, and of course, migration. This table tells a really interesting story. The main reason for India's population boom, especially up until about 1981, was that the death rate fell really fast, but the birth rate stayed high. That growing gap between the two led to what people call a population explosion. You can see the annual growth rate peaked at over 2.2% back in '81. But hang on, here's a fascinating puzzle. The numbers show that since 1981, the rate of growth has actually been getting smaller. So how is it possible that in the 1990s, India still added 182 million people? That's a bigger number of people than ever before. How does that work? Well, the answer is all about the starting number, the base population. It's kind of India's demographic paradox. When your starting number is over 1 billion people, even a small percentage of growth adds up to a massive number of actual people. So yeah, the growth rate is slowing down, but the number of people being added every year is still just enormous. Okay, now let's talk about that third piece of the population puzzle, migration. And we're not talking about people moving to other countries, but the incredible movement of people within India. So the biggest driver of this internal migration is the move from the countryside to the cities. You can think about it in terms of push and pull factors. Things like poverty and a lack of jobs in rural areas literally push people to leave. At the same time, the promise of more jobs and better living conditions in cities pulls them in. And this constant movement has had a huge effect. As you can see here, the percentage of Indians living in cities and towns nearly doubled in 60 years, going from about 17% in 1951 to almost 32% in 2011. That's a massive fundamental shift in what Indian society looks like. So, what does all this mean for India's future? Well, the answer seems to be in two really critical areas: its huge youth population and the policies being created to shape their future. One of the most important things to know about India's population today is just how young it is. Get this, a staggering 1/5 of the entire nation is made up of adolescents between 10 and 19 years old. And that demographic? Well, they're India's most important resource for the future. But to really unlock all that potential, the country has to deal with some big challenges, especially around nutrition and education. And that's particularly true for adolescent girls, who often face unique hurdles. So, to tackle these challenges, the Indian government created the National Population Policy back in 2000. It's this big, comprehensive plan aimed at improving the health and lives of the population. It focuses on really key things, like making sure kids get educated, bringing down infant mortality, and making family welfare a program that's really centered on people's needs. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important question. With the largest youth population on the planet, India is really at a crossroads. The huge challenge, but also the incredible opportunity, is how to empower this generation. How the nation invests in their health, their education, and their potential. Well, that's not just going to shape their future, it's going to shape the future of India itself.